Yeah, so impact. This is a incredible journey you've been on this far. Like I know that you being a speaker and a coach, culinary expert of sorts, like what other realms would you say besides being a marketing, you know, uh how do you say advocate to grow businesses? Like how other ways do you see your life moving into the future about how you can impact other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always growing, always changing, and the world is constantly changing. And if we don't change, we're just gonna stay in the past. We'll stay stuck. So we have to constantly stay in tune with realities and be relevant. And yet the world is changing at such a rapid pace now. And I
It
often tell people, just look at like AI technology only just surfaced, but how many of us use ChatGPT regularly now? How many of us uh, know that quantum computers are coming out in like 2.5 years, and then when that merges with artificial intelligence, is going to revolutionize the tech industry. It's going to revolutionize so many things to where the world's going to change and become like Star Trekky before we know it.
yeah.
So like that is an interesting thing when you think about things from the realm of not as an entrepreneur. How are we going to assimilate into that? Now, what we see right now is that societally for many, many years, uh, most people had this mindset, where going to work at a company and being an employee was kind of the route to go. And you could find a steady job and find stability. And that was many people. And there's still, of course, that we have that. But I personally am seeing that unlike any other time, as I mentioned before, it seems to me that the entrepreneurial spirit is very alive right now. And people are tired, for example, they're tired of having to work like 9 to 5, 5 days a week at a company and get like 1 week off a year. Like they're tired of that. They're tired of just saving up for a retirement and then being old with that retirement. Like a lot of younger people now, they're looking at saying, how can I live now? How
Mhm.
can I have my career and have live and travel and have my kids and do my things without having to, just waste away? There's different personalities. And of course, the type of people I coach are primarily going to be your innovators, your entrepreneurs, your kind of like those people, or people who are trying to become an influencer, whether that be like they're an author or they're a speaker or they're like a podcast personality or whatever they are. I'm helping coach them along their path.
Yes.
It's all about standing out. It's about creating, that element. I think for me, it means I have to constantly be growing. It means I have to constantly be learning new things so that I'm with the times as well.
So,
So it's interesting. But I think at this point in my marketing career, like I've worked in just about every type of industry you can imagine, from fashion, retail to healthcare to construction and to the food industry. I mean, just about, I mean, insurance and real estate and it's legal, all of it. And so it's given me even banking. Like I worked with a Swiss bank for a while and doing marketing stuff. And it's interesting when you start to see like the kind of the cogs and the pieces and the components of society and how they all kind of work. And you glean a little bit over here from the legal standpoint. You glean a little bit over here from maybe the technical standpoint, a little bit over here from like, and the marketing world is all about getting to know your client so
mhm.
that you can transmit their message effectively with good consumer psychology towards their target market. And so we really have to know and understand our clients and their businesses and their consumers. So it really, over the last short while, even though I've only been in marketing for 5 years,
Mhm.
it has allowed me to grow and learn in such a way to where I'm able to kind of be like water that pours into the crevices where needed. Like, all
Yeah.
right, I know enough about this to be dangerous. I know enough about that. Let's go. But if I don't know something, of course, I work with a partner. But like literally that I've learned so much. And of course, before that, having been in the nonprofit realm and traveled as extensively as I did, I had this maybe consumer psychology component where I learned how people think. Now, I'm not an expert in all things, no one is, but I've learned a lot working with a lot of people from around the world in a lot of really interesting places. You kind of learn how people think, and that's really served us well in the realm of branding for businesses, where we're helping uh, a, for example, a company in China that wants to do retail fashion in Latin America, and we help a uh, the Swiss bank that's doing banking in Panama, as an example. And so it's just like that kind of cross-cultural consumer psychology and how people think and process the same information differently.
Hmm.
So how do you make it resonate in a way that really is impactful? And I think from a marketing standpoint, most people in the realm of marketing and most agencies are pretty familiar on the local level,
Hmm.
but even our localities have changed with immigration, so much so that, you know, there's so many people from around the world
Yeah.
that live in the US and still retain their culture and their core, their worldviews and perspectives. So marketing has to resonate to different pockets of people. It can't just be one shoe fits all. So that's one of the things I think I probably bring to the table, but it also keeps me on my toes because I have to constantly be learning.
No, totally. Mark of a good leader is the one, that always tries to elevate their knowledge and their expertise to newer heights where people uh haven't gone before and haven't seen before. So no, I definitely commend you and you being able to be that revolutionary in that standpoint. Um, I know you touched on like growing up in the jungle. I know that that is not some kind of typical environment that one would grow up in. Can you touch a little bit more about what that was like growing up in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. So we lived in different regions of Panama. When we first moved to Panama when I was a little kid, we lived in on the beach. There was a beach house that was formerly owned by one of the ex-presidents or dictators actually of Panama.
Hmm.
We lived there for a bit, and that was kind of the where all the luxury resort and the same like two luxury resorts like right next to each other in the same on the same strip. But back then it was just fishing villages. Then we moved to this really rural um, farming community
Okay.
that was focused on like cattle and agriculture, and so it was kind of like it had the central plaza with the Catholic Church and very much like colonial and as a kid my brother and I and my sister, we'd run around the streets. I played soccer with the kids on the streets, and we'd take tamarind off the trees and eat tamarind, and go down to the bakery and buy some bread, and just and eat with the kids, and we'd make forts and all the things. So
Hmm.
eventually, we moved closer to the city, and to a place that was in the near the canal zone, and we were there for a season. Then lastly, we lived more towards the jungle. So the jungle in Panama, there's lots of jungle. Of course, we have the Darien Gap, which is basically the border that borders Colombia. It's huge virgin rainforest. But then there's also the Chagres River Basin. And
Hmm.
the Chagres River, along the Chagres River, which is the source of the Panama Canal,
Yes.
we're talking beautiful, gorgeous virgin rainforest with huge bluffs and the trees that are massive trunks that go way up.
Hmm.
And it's just lush with vines and monstera and orchids and bromelia and just howler monkeys and parrots and kingfishers in the water and like caimans, and it's so lush that I watched the movies Avatar, not the
Hmm.
Airbender one, but the ones with the blue people.
Okay.
And so much of that movie resonates with me because as a kid, we would like my brother and I would like in the indigenous villages, we would like slide down the muddy slopes into the village and into the river, I meant, and climb trees and jump off into the river and climb waterfalls. And we'd be like muddy, barefoot, like head to toe, and like eh, covered in mud. And it was such a fun experience to do that. And then, the days would end. Now we didn't live in these villages. Like I didn't live in a hut. We lived near the villages and we'd take boats up. But sometimes we'd spend like several days at a time in the villages. So, but all these indigenous kids lived with us on our property, and our property is in the jungle, just not in the village. So it's hard to explain it.
Fair
So,
enough.
like, we spent a lot of time in the jungle. So, all around my property where I grew up, it was rainforest, literally rainforest. And we'd have sloths and all kinds of wildlife in the area. Rain would pour. We had 6 or 7 or 8 different mango trees on the property, huge mango trees. We'd climb and get the mangoes down. And it's a very, for a lot of Panamanian kids and certainly for indigenous kids, and I think anyone who grows up in the tropics, what I'm kind of expressing is probably somewhat familiar. The idea of climbing a mango tree to get yourself a mango, or like, eating tamarind when it's like nice and fresh and sour, and uh, it's like these are very nostalgic things for me.
Mm.
Of course, in the US, other than maybe in certain parts of Hawaii, we don't really have a rainforest, So, uh, but the rainforest is one of these things that you really have to experience it because it is a level of biodiversity unlike anything you can ever imagine. The number of different types of plant life and fauna that are in a small little area, it is so lush.
Mm.
And I remember specifically on some of the hikes we would do, excuse me, some of the hikes we would do uh, in the jungle, say in Costa Rica even, talking to some of the indigenous people, and they were like, this plant is for this, and this one's for that medicine, and this one's for this. And I'm just walking the jungle, not even aware that so many of things around me are
Yeah.
like medicine, or
Mm.
food. And how, if we were ever stranded in the jungle, we could survive if we had to, And so that kind of stuff is really exciting. I think getting to it gives me a real appreciation for like ingredients, a real appreciation for the environment, a real appreciation for going back to a type of living where we're not all the time like indoors looking at screens. So, you know, but yeah, I think that was some of it. I think some of the other things like in Panama, the indigenous tribes, especially Imbara are very unique, as all indigenous peoples are, but they have a certain type of pigmentation that they use. It's very similar to henna. Like in India, they'll do the henna tattoos,
Yes.
but like basically it's called hagua, and it's a bluish black type of pigmentation
It's called
that comes from a
Hagua.
fruit. Hagua.
Hagua. Okay.
Yeah, it comes from a fruit. Yeah. And they paint little tattoos that last about a week to 10 days all over their bodies, arms, legs, chest, uh, and even face, like the bearded area. Even women will do like patterns on their face.
Wow.
And so it's really beautiful. And they'll wear a lot of jewelry, like necklaces similar to what I'm wearing. This is from the Imbara, and so is
Beautiful.
this one. And so with seeds and nuts and they weave beautiful baskets out of that are done with all natural dyes from plants that are available right there in the jungle. And these baskets take them, sometimes they'll be really big ones, but these baskets, they'll weave them by hand. Sometimes the women will spend several months weaving a basket that is some of the most ornate, beautifully patterned, most tightly knit, so tightly knit that you can actually hold water in the basket.
Wow.
Water won't leak out of it. That's how tightly knit they are. And they'll sell them for like not that much to tourists. And I'm like, like, uh, and so the craftsmanship, they're woodworkers. They carve up beautiful sculptures of flora and fauna into different types of wood, like cocobolo wood, and it's wood that's been in the river for a bit, and it gets a certain type of concentration. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like the water kind of makes it firmer and stronger, and they'll make these beautiful wood carvings and nut carvings. Um, and there's so much artistry and craftsmanship amongst all of the indigenous tribes. I'm
Yeah.
specifically talking about the Mbara but like literally that really impacted me. And I think seeing that really impacted my artistic perspective
Mhm.
my design perspective, my my love for Indigenous peoples is really exponentially large. I have a huge heart for also the Native American communities here in the US, and and I've had clients who are Native American, and I've done interior design for a Native American artist in Iowa, for example. She's
Yes.
originally from Arizona, and just being able to be an advocate for telling people's stories effectively where they don't sell themselves short,
Mhm.
really important to me. So
Thank you again for listening to Heart on Fire podcast, or if you're viewing, we appreciate you all. And if you would like or subscribe or follow wherever you are tuning in, feel free to. And feel free to follow us on our Instagram page at heartonfire.podcast. And of course, we always want to empower you and say you are enough. And now let's continue on with the show.
No, I sincerely love all of that. And it just goes to show, like how far you've come along, from the boys swinging in the trees and, and then now you're just being able to swing from like one facet to another, impacting in communities at various stages. It's immense what you've accomplished this far. I'm so excited, what more is to come from your end. Obviously, I would love to be able to, touch base in the future about some updates, but kind of looking back from where you've grown up to where you are now, it's like what advice would you like to impart uh to your younger self, or even to people who are aspiring to, have an impact on their communities?
I think that we have to understand that nothing is wasted.
Hmm.
Every single thing we've been through, whether it was a really difficult situation, like I had cancer when I was 14, difficult story, but it is my story. It is something that formed my character. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you've been through, everything you've been through can serve a purpose. Everything can be used for your good. And so it's just a matter of that perspective. And I think that if we go into something thinking we're defeated before we even get into it, we're never going to do it. So it's
Hmm.
really important to put the lens on your past to where you can cherish every element of it, even the hard stuff, to understand what that did to make you who you are today. And if there are things that you're going through still because of the past that are not to your benefit, get those areas taken care of and don't carry them anymore. Because so a lot of people, I think we wait. I can watch a bunch of reels on Instagram. I can, go on Facebook and YouTube, and, I can order something on Amazon real quick. I can buy online. Like so much of it's available right here on my phone
Right.
that can distract me from productivity. That can distract me from that. This life is short. Like we don't have that long to live in this world. And so, what are you doing that's going to allow you to live a life that's not only exciting and vibrant and adventurous, but also that leaves behind a legacy and an impact for your children and their children's children and for community at large? Do not conform looking at other people living their best lives when you can too. And so I've talked with a lot of people over the years who, yeah, I know I want to do more, but I'm just stuck in my job. I hate it. I hate my job, but I'm just doing it. And I'm like, why? Let's be creative. Let's get you out of that situation. Why are you staying in a job that you hate? I know you need the money. You probably have some debts. I get that. There are creative ways to get out of it. So if you're feeling stuck and you're like you're not happy or content with your life, and you don't have the creativity to get out of it, find someone who can help you be creative to get out of it. Because I can assure you that once you're out of that box and you're not trapped anymore, your entire perspective will change. I have lived numerous lives at this point.
Hmm.
That's how I feel. I've lived numerous lives since I was a kid, living in Panama, and then, being in an international nonprofit world and living in Hawaii for a bit, a couple of years, and then living in Iowa for 4 years, and now living in Florida as a new chapter. And each one of these things, whether it was culinary training or whether it was the nonprofit world or marketing or interior design or now personal brand coaching and keynote speaking, all of it has woven the story to where I am today. And I'm 38 years old. I have many years ahead of me, I hope. And this won't be the end. There's so many more things to do. One of my favorite people in the world is a good friend of mine named Joanne.
Mm.
She's 73 years old and she just went back to university and got her bachelor's degree.
Amazing.
And she is now in England, like traveling abroad for her school and going on a cruise across the Atlantic back. And she's basically hanging out with all these young people and they're like 18 to 23 who are in university with her doing this foreign travel abroad. And she's sucking the marrow out of life and she's living it. And live, people, live, but don't just live for yourself, live for others. So love yourself enough to live that life, but love as you love yourself, love others. Make that impact because this life will be over before you know it. Before you know it. So don't waste your time.
That's so incredible. I love that message. Just to kind of come full circle. I know you've endured, that time of your life of overcoming cancer. Can you just lastly kind of bring it back home of like what that was like for you, especially?
Yeah, I was 14 years old and got diagnosed with cancer and I ended up having to go through chemotherapy.
Hmm.
And at the time, it was a very aggressive cancer. And uh, that was a very difficult year from a health standpoint. So when you're 14, you're young. When you're that age, you're not thinking about sickness. You're not thinking about like, oh, I could die. Like you're just thinking about nothing, frankly. You're kind of like enjoying school and like, like in your friends and stuff like that. It's not like you're like, oh, I could die. But that's where I was. Like suddenly I'm faced with this reality, like I could die. And when I went through chemotherapy, chemo is no joke. I mean, I would never do chemo nowadays again, but back then that's what we did. But like literally, I went through one of the worst, they call it the red kiss of death, the type of chemo I was on. So like I lost all my hair, which is the main thing that people talk about with cancer, but I also like lost a ton of weight. I looked like I did not look good. And couldn't keep food down for almost 9 months and I was really sick. During that time, I was poked and prodded and put through every type of CAT scan, MRI you can imagine, and all the blood work and tests and all the things, every week at the hospital for treatments and feeling very, very sick. So I had a lot of time on my own, laying in bed or laying in the hospital or looking at the CAT scan that I'd sometimes be in for like an hour in just processing. And when you're that age, and you're faced with that kind of difficulty, and a lot of people have it. So I think it's not only cancer. I think when I've traveled and I've seen refugees fleeing for their lives because there's guerrilla warfare in their country and they're getting shot at, or you see like Haiti, for example, and they lost their homes, they lose everything and they have nothing. You realize the fragility of life, that none of us is guaranteed a long life.
Hmm.
None of us is guaranteed anything, actually.
Yeah.
We are guaranteed so little in this world. I hold it very dearly to my faith for that reason. I hold very dearly to my loved ones and my family. And also for my purpose, to not waste my time. I think that's one of the main things I learned was that, and people look at me and they go, David, you've done so much in your life already, because I've done so much variety of things. And it's because I look at each moment, each minute, and I'm like, well, that's a minute gone. And not to say I don't rest. Don't get me wrong. I do watch Netflix sometimes. I do like spend time on my phone. I'm in marketing, So I'm not trying to like hammer anyone who's listening or watching this to think that I'm condemning you. I'm not. Because I do the same thing.
Hmm.
All I'm trying to say is that you have options and choices, and to realize, and I think the most impacting moment for me when I had cancer the first time, because I've had cancer twice. I had it when I was 30 as well, which is a whole other story. But like, is that there's a little boy named Oliver a little 5-year-old, sitting on my lap receiving his chemo. He was blind, he had a brain tumor. And Oliver was this dear little boy. Loved him. He was so sweet, so kind, so compassionate. And I just loved Oliver. And then one day I went to the chemo ward and he wasn't there anymore. And I was like, where is he? And they said, unfortunately, he passed away.
Mm.
And as a 14-year-old, that's really hard. It's hard at any point. It's hard at any point with death and losing loved ones or anyone we know. You know, I'm sure that many people watching or listening have experienced bereavement or grief at some point in their life. It's hard. But something happens to you when you're that age and you start to realize like that could happen to me, you know, and it's not living in fear at all. It is simply recognizing that we're in this world for a short time and there's a lot that we can experience in it and a lot that we can give. Each one of us has been given tools. Each one of us has been given something that no one else has. Each person is uniquely created. So each person has a unique destiny. Each person has a unique gift set. And if you want to live a life where your heart is on fire, you can. And so don't limit yourself that way. But that's probably the main thing I want people to understand is to live that purpose-driven life. And so for me, that was probably the biggest thing that happened from that. I mean, there was many other things, but probably the main takeaway for me was, hey, I don't have it all together all the time. So
No, totally. No, it's incredible. I mean, to be where you're at today, I mean, like there's no way you could have endured, growing up and then having to endure this cancer and to not live your life without a changed perspective. It to know that like it would be foolish for you to not live more fully and to be able to have the capacity to take what you've learned and transform that in a way where it's fully invigorating for you to live the life and purpose driven life that you're meant to live, as well as being able to impact others on tremendous levels. And I'm so grateful for your journey so far, and it's incredible. I look forward to, like I said, what's to come, what's ahead. How can the audience follow you on your journey?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, any
Thank you.
socials that you would like to share?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Maui, so much for having me on. I really resonated with your Instagram, which is where I found you first. And just the type of host you are and the passion I see in your heart for people and for even just learning and engaging with people and very authentically. So that was what really resonated with me. As for how to find me, everything is pretty easy when it comes to me. So my Instagram handle and Facebook and my YouTube channel is David Allen Tracy. David Allen Tracy. And I have my website, which is davidallentracy.com. And so for those who are watching and listening, I have a bi-weekly workshop that I provide virtually every Tuesday and Thursday with different guest speakers who speak on a variety of topics ranging from mental health and wellness to personal branding and marketing to how to dress for success and they're very much accomplished individuals who are either coaches, seasoned entrepreneurs, authors, celebrity stylists or celebrity hair and makeup people who know what they're talking about. People who know how to do video production at a very high level, best-selling authors. So they're all sharing their nuggets of gold. And so every week, and then if you miss a live, you can watch our video resource center and watch dozens of other videos from past times. And these speakers come from around the world. Our members are from around the world. So it's only $19 a month for 8 workshops a month, plus the video resource library, plus membership discounts to affiliate partners. And I'd like to offer your listeners and viewers a first month free access.
Amazing.
By using the code Be My Guest 2024, and we'll provide you those links as well. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your story is incredible. I hope that the audience that's listening and watching and have taken so many nuggets with them on their journey so that they can move forward to impact not only themselves, but also the communities at large. I thank you, everyone. Please feel free to follow us on our Instagram, heartonfire.podcast, as well as our YouTube channel. If you're already tuning in on Spotify or iTunes or other platforms, feel free to give it a thumbs up, a like, and support this podcast, because without you guys, we can't do this without. And I want to sign off and say thank you so much. Thank you again, our guest, David. Keep setting your guys on fire. Thank you all. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. She done, son. She been done. She done did it.